Learn how to build a better sign and print shop from a few crusty sign guys who've made more mistakes than they care to admit. Conversations and advice on pricing, sales, marketing, workflow, growth, and more. You're listening to the Better Sign Shop Podcast with your hosts, Peter Kourounis, Mike O'Reilly, and Bryant Gillespie.
Before we jump into the episode, I'd like to give a shout out to our sponsor, GCI Digital Imaging, grand format printer to the trade. We talk a lot about outsourcing on the podcast and the importance of having good partners, and GCI Digital Imaging is a good partner to have. Owner TJ Bedacht and his team focus on providing killer customer service just the way grandmother used to make it. If you're interested in learning their approach to business, hop back into the archives to episode 9, where the guys and I interview TJ about customer experience. So if you're looking for a high quality trade printer for banners, wraps, and other printed graphics that your customers throw at you, check out GCI Digital Imaging at printgci.com. All right, guys, welcome to the next edition of the Better Sign Shop Podcast. A little rusty here. That's not the co-host of the podcast. That is Mike, the Sign, Tito, Burrito. I don't know, man. Michael Riley, the Sign Design Samurai. Mike, how are you, dude?
I can live with that. I think we've made our way through the Mexican restaurant menu at this point. We're out of guacamole. Not the only thing we haven't touched on yet. I'm good. It's been a while since I've been here. I'm definitely going to be rusty today. I apologize in advance.
Yeah, no, it's all right, man. Yeah, we've missed you on the show. Peter is not quite here yet. He's coming. We wanted to record a little bit before we have our special guest on. I'm really excited about that. I'm hoping she has some nicknames for us. Something. We gotta keep this train moving. You know, one thing I did notice recently, Mike, is on Spotify, the Spotify feed has the ability to do like feedback now. And like somebody wrote in and was like, love Mike's nickname. I can't remember what they put, actually. Let's see if I can find that real quick. I think I posted it here, right? I
didn't know you could leave feedback on Spotify. That's
Mike's nickname. Okay, this is from Bruzo1 on Spotify. This is on the Sign Shop Management Software episode. Mike's nickname, the Sign Samurai or the Sign Ninja. And I maybe the Sign Design Samurai, that's got a nice ring to it for you. I can't see you as a Sign Ninja at all.
No, I don't move fast enough for that. I'm more of a sloth than a... You definitely see me coming. No, I like the direction that's moving in more of a, duke it out kind of way.
Mexican food?
Yeah, and not rolled up in a tortilla anymore. Samurais, they have weapons, and those are cool. Tom Cruise played a samurai.
Indeed. Well, cool, man. I'm glad we've got you back for this episode. Again, yeah, we'll wait on Peter to show up, but to set this one up, we've got a guest. I started writing a column for Signs of the Times. How long ago was that? A couple months ago. And when I first started, one of the editors was like, hey, can you write like this? And they linked to our guest today. And I read her columns. I was like, hey, this is really good writing. She is of the same mindset as the rest of us. Let's have her on the podcast. She is also a Signarama owner. So I'm curious how that's going to play with Pete, former FastSigns. Maybe we have like a head-to-head battle here. I don't know.
Yes. Epic throwdown. Franchisee. I can't wait. I'm excited for this.
Epic throwdown. All right. Well, what do you think? Should we bring Maggie on?
Let's do it.
Excellent. All right, guys. We're back with our guest, Maggie Harlow, the owner of Signarama Louisville. Is it downtown? Is that what you refer to it as, Maggie?
I refer to it as downtown just because
downtown.
We have 4 in Louisville, and Louisville,
Okay.
and so mine. We try to kind of differentiate. So yeah, mine's
Gotcha.
downtown.
Okay. All right. Yes. We have Maggie Harlow from Signarama Downtown with us. Maggie is a fellow Signs of the Times columnist and many-time award winner I've seen. And she writes killer columns for Signs of the Times. That's how I was introduced. I said, hey, we've got to have her on the podcast. So here she is. Maggie, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. It was fun to go back and listen to some of your podcasts and catch the vibe. And I was like, okay, I can hang with these guys, even though, there's some nemesis energy, but you got to have that. You got to have that.
Yeah, Mike. Come on.
Is that aimed at me or is that aimed at Peter?
Peter's choice of words.
She's on team red. I'm on team blue, or was on team blue here. All right, that's what she's referring to. But at the end of the day, all good. We're friends. We're family. We're sign shop owners.
That's right.
It's all nothing but love coming over from this side of the fence.
Is there, I gotta ask you all, is there like a Signarama versus FastSigns like franchise, like softball league or anything? Like, do you guys get together?
God, it would be amazing. You know
kickball,
what?
Dodgeball.
Dodgeball would be very satisfying. Yeah, maybe a cornhole, or I don't know. We got to think about that.
I was gonna say probably pickleball with the growth of that sport. Maybe it could get quite competitive.
Yeah, I'm in.
Are you a pickleball guy, Peter?
No.
Okay, all right. I was just making sure.
What is pickleball? I keep hearing about it.
I don't even understand it. It's like ping pong and tennis, and you have to be like 55 and older to really enjoy it.
Yeah, you don't meet the requirements. I mean, you're not nearly old enough.
No, I'm not. I'll take anybody on a tennis court though, with a real. That's a real sport.
Peter's retired twice, so that's why I asked. I was just making sure.
Oh, yes.
Okay. All right, Maggie, super awesome to have you. Tell us a little about your story. Like, how did you get into the sign business? I think that's where we start with all of our guests.
Let's start with how I entered into this insane industry. I was actually working for my family's business. My father owned a car dealership, and I grew up working there, doing everything. And then when I graduated from college, he invited me to work full time. And I thought, well, I'll give it a shot. Wasn't really excited about it, but it ended up being amazing working for my dad and learning all the different parts of a dealership. A dealership is an insane combination of different businesses. You have car sales, you have car repair, you have body shop, you have parts, and they have to work in unison, but they also kind of compete with each other. It's a really wild kind of dynamic. So I really learned a lot of nuance about team dynamics and sales and customer service and all of that. So when he was ready to retire, he asked me if I wanted to buy it. And I thought, it's just a mom and pop dealership, and those are dying, those are going away. So I said, I don't think so. Let's sell it. And so he sold it, and I was out of a job. So I went to work for the guys who bought it, but figured out really quickly, I am not a good employee. Like, they are going to fire me. So I need to fire them first. So I started looking around for businesses. I thought, well, let me open a business. My husband was in construction. He had a small remodeling business. So I started looking at franchises because I thought, all I know is cars, and I'll just look at franchises and they'll send me ideas. So all these different ideas came in. And Signarama, the sign business, was the only one that my husband and I could agree on. He was like,
wow,
you don't want to wash dogs. You don't want to make sandwiches. You won't even make me a sandwich. What are you talking about? I was like, you're right. I don't want to own a restaurant. So it just made sense. And he decided, once I kind of got, the franchise, looking at the franchise, going to training, picked our location and all of that, I was getting really excited. And he was like, you know what? I think I'm going to close remodeling business and work with you. He knows I don't like things like numbers. So he was like, I will handle everything, the payroll, the insurance, the bills. And I was like, well, that's an offer I can't refuse. So he came to work with me.
That sounds perfect.
Yes, it was absolutely perfect because all I wanted to do was sell. I just wanted to go out every day and talk to customers. So that was 20 years ago. This summer it'll be 20 years, and
Wow.
Wow.
Okay.
we have 29 employees, and so we just are having a ball. Of course, ups and downs, but we're having a ball.
Awesome. So, okay, I have to ask, what about the sign industry seemed perfect to you? Because as somebody who spent his entire career in this industry, that seems insane to me.
I know, because I think so many people end up in the sign business almost like they fall off of a log and they land in a sign company. Like it just seems like so many people are just like, "Whoa, what is this?"
That's
But
exactly how
yeah,
we end up in
that's the
this
story.
black
That's
hole
the
in the
origin
industry. Yeah,
story of the sign.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody is like that.
I'm
So
always
it
fascinated by
was
when people actually like make a conscious decision to get
all
into this
right. It's
industry.
very deliberate. So listen to this, Mike. So I was working at my dad's car business, which is a franchise. But it's a franchise where they're like, here's your product, here's your car. We got a terrible review. Good luck selling it. By the way, this is what you have to sell it for. And, it's a
Mhm.
very managed kind of franchise. And while I loved the customers, I loved my employees, I did not enjoy that business model of being told this is what you're selling, even if it's a piece of crap. And,
No
good
control.
luck.
No
Right.
control.
No control. I'm a little bit of a control freak. So I also was like, I don't want nights and weekends. I don't want to be busy around Christmas. I don't want to be hiring minimum wage people. I just had this long list. I didn't want to generate a bunch of hazardous waste. I didn't, I knew exactly what I didn't want.
Mhm.
And when I compared it to the sign business, I was like, check, 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 check. I mean, everything was a perfect alignment. And plus, of course, my husband Brian was like, I can help with the installs because he's a remodeler and a construction guy. So it just was too perfect. And then when we talked to the Signarama franchise folks, they invited us down for a discovery day. But I was like, I got two little kids. I don't have time to come down to Florida and listen to you gab at me. So I decided, because I'd worked for my dad my whole life, I was like, I'm going to do this on my own. I never consulted him. I didn't talk to him
Wow.
about it. I was like, I'm a big girl. I'm going to do this. And so I
Right.
get all the way to like signing the document, right? Like, the big, giant, scary document. And of course, my attorney's like, ugh, it's got teeth. You got to be careful. You're going to do this. So I'm about to sign it. And I literally was like, I got to call my dad. So I called my dad and I said, I don't know, Dad. I don't know if I should sign this. And he's like, well, have you talked to other franchisees? I said, yeah, they didn't say anything scary. I mean, they had good, typical kind of complaints, but nothing like the car business complaints I have. And he's like, well, do you think they're going to screw you? And I was like, I mean, no. And he's like, well, they're going to screw you. He's like, do you think they're going to screw you hard? And I was like, no, I don't think they're going to screw me hard.
That's
I'm sorry. That just hits hard. That just hits hard for me.
So he was like, then go ahead and sign
Uh,
it. He's like, go ahead and sign it. And I was like,
it's just,
okay. And I
it's
did.
just, it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of how hard they're going to screw
hard.
you.
Yeah, they're going to screw you. That's just,
That's probably the best way I've ever heard that. Okay.
Is that a requirement with the FastSigns agreement too, Pete, or no?
It's got teeth too. Don't get me wrong. It's got teeth. I mean, I've been there too. One might say that when you have that very large document in front of you, it's very intimidating. Very intimidating. I mean, if you do not use a lawyer, if you didn't use a lawyer, I mean, you're taking a huge gamble. But anytime I ever signed an agreement, I used my attorney. I played it safe. And
yeah.
my
And
attorney.
I mean, they're typically not going to negotiate. It's not like your attorney's going to be like, we want you to take this out. And they're going to be like, okay. I mean, they're pretty much not going to take much out, but it is really just a case of knowing the company. So that's why I think it's important. We called around and talked to other franchises, and they came up with some lame complaints. I was like, you think that's bad? Let me tell you what a car company will do. Like, they will literally show up with, brass knuckles and take money from you. So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
I can imagine that. That's an interesting. Like it makes me feel better about our industry a little bit, Mike. I'm not sure if that's the same for you.
Yeah,
it's
maybe.
Maybe no. He's still hanging on to the crustiness.
Yeah, I always will. I mean, that's just me. I'm a glass half empty kind of guy.
Well, and a
Um,
franchise doesn't make sense if you don't want the benefits of a franchise. People are always like, "Is it better to do a franchise?" I'm like, I don't know if it's better for me, but I would never say that it's better for everybody to do a franchise.
so with the benefit of 20 years of hindsight and franchise aside from this, just the sign industry in general, did you make the right decision to enter this industry, do you feel like?
Oh,
Or
100%. I mean,
okay.
it was exactly what I wanted. Of course, we all have painful mistakes. The sign business is unrelenting, unforgiving. It is unforgiving, and you have to get better at it all the time, or it's a really tough taskmaster. But we love it, and I love the employees I get to work with. I love the customers. I love seeing the projects, like just driving around and seeing your resume around town. It's just really, really fun.
Mm, yeah, good. Some people regret it. I'm not
That
naming
wasn't
any
even
names.
thinly veiled, Michael.
I know, Mike, that was hilarious. Little, some people really regret it.
If Mike's got a farm picked out in North Carolina right now, so that's what
Yeah,
he's eyeing.
I've got one
That's
foot out the
pretty neat.
door. No, I have a love-hate relationship with this industry. I really
I
do
think
love
we
what
all
I
do.
do. Yeah, I mean, I do. But you're right. I mean, it's hold your feet to the flames
Yeah.
24/7. I mean, it's definitely when it wants to turn up the pressure and the heat, it's an industry that can definitely do that for you. And
Yeah. You have to be worthy. You have to really stay on your game. If you
yeah,
can't kind of just lollygag around it.
yeah, yeah. I love what
Yeah.
you said a minute ago that you have to constantly get better at it too. And
Hmm.
that's like I think one of the I've never heard anybody say that about this industry, but I think that's one of the truest things I've ever heard. Like you can't get lazy in it. You can't just say good enough is good enough because you'll get just gobbled up, in
Yeah.
no
And
time.
everybody's trying to turn it into a commodity. I mean,
Yeah.
every print shop suddenly makes banners. Of course,
Mm.
they really go through a major learning curve when they get into that side of the business. And so it's like little nibbles on the edges of it, which means you have to constantly find new bandwidth, because
Mm,
if you just sit and wait for, business, it's just going to get eaten up by your competitors who are really, especially the print operators, they're dying. Like these last 10 years for them has just been painful to watch, really. So they're just figuring out how to take as much of that as they can from us.
Oof.
yeah.
Talk to me. I'm actually very curious to ask you this. Talk to me about your first full year as a franchise owner. What was that like? For a lot of sign shops out there, a lot of sign shops fail their first year. What was it like for you coming into a new franchise, having the support, but also what was your employees like? What was the type of work you were doing? I mean,
Well, a
if
whole
you
new
can think
industry,
back that far.
not
It's
just the
extreme.
full franchise, but you were completely new to the industry that first year,
Yeah,
right?
I knew
Yeah.
nothing. I knew nothing. And so yes, just like so many new franchise owners, they come in and you go to training school and you're ready, right? And so I think I made a couple of I had a ton of luck, and I also made some bad mistakes that turned out to be really lucky. So one of the mistakes I made was I signed a lease on a property that I wanted to be in. It was a high dollar, like Class A facility in the center of our urban area, like right downtown. I was underneath the Chamber of Commerce in that building. And so we go to start occupying the space, and the landlord is like, "You can't put a sign on the building." And I was like, "What?" And he said, "Yeah, you can't. No. Have you not read your lease? No, it's an historic building. You can't put a sign on it." So I was like, "That's interesting." So we had this like neon sign. I'm not exaggerating. It's literally, I could like hold it right here in my hands. Like here, it said Signarama is this big. And hung that in the window, and covered the window in decals as much as I could, which of course they were like, "You got to take all that crap down. What are you doing?" And so I thought, well, the only way I'm going to make any sales is to, I'm only going to eat what I kill. And so every single day I went out and knocked on doors. I just literally like turned right, turned left, got in my car, drove 3 blocks, got out and walked. And I knocked on doors for 2 hours a day, every day. I taught my staff to literally kick me out. I was like, I'm going to tell you that I'm busy on email and you need to kick me out because it'll be raining or cold and I'm not going to want to go. So they were all like, you got to go, you got to go, you got to go. And so I literally had to go out and drag every single job back. And we weren't in the yellow pages yet. The internet wasn't anything. So we weren't in the yellow pages yet. So it was
What are
it was
those?
Wow.
tough. It was scary. So that first few months, it was literally like I'd come back to the shop with I sold a banner, and everybody would high five me. And so it was, but that ended up being such an instrumental thing because it made me fearless. I would walk into any business and introduce myself. I didn't care. I just literally was numb. I was just like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. And so it made me know people. I knew the businesses around me. I knew people. I could give referrals. I could say, oh, there's a dentist just 3 blocks down. You need to go see them. Like I just started to build relationships that way. So in our first year, we opened in July, and our first year, January to December, I ended up doing $1 million in sales, which I did not
Wow.
know was amazing because I was so terrified. I was just like running. I was like full sprint. Oh God, I got to sell another thing. I got to sell another thing. So we ended up, a big part of that was one client who needed a corporate client who was in a terrible situation. They were in under the gun, and I just happened to work with them on a lobby sign and then some vehicle wraps. And they said, well, can you wrap 90 buses in 90 days? And I was like, of
Wow.
course I can. And they were like, okay, they're in 22 states. I was like, no problem. No problem. 22 states. I got this. So we actually sold that project, and it took I stopped going door to door because all I did all day was manage that project. So it was an amazing year. But yeah, we did $1 million. So we learned a lot really fast.
That's
Yeah,
Wow.
that's freaking amazing because
that is
like
amazing.
we've got guys in our group that are like they're still been in this game 20 years and still try to crack $1 million in sales. And you did it year one. Like what
Yes.
do you just attribute that to just knocking on doors? Is it like some of your background in car sales or the
Oh, I
car
definitely,
business
the
or
sales background is tremendous because, I sold cars, right? So you're negotiating on, an $80,000 luxury car. So you learn to just kind of, you don't think about the numbers, right? I'm just here to sell something. I don't think about that number's crazy. I would never spend that much on a car. So I learned to just not worry about so much about what I was pitching to people. And I learned how to read people and learned how to sell. But my background in the automotive business helped with this bus deal because they don't know anything about buses. They don't know anything about wrapping. I mean, they didn't know what they were doing. And so I was able to kind of come in as an expert, only being new in the business. But I could talk about the type of paints on the buses and the repairs that needed to be done to the buses. And so, I was able to be expert enough as a lot of salespeople say, all you have to be is more expert than your customer. You don't have to be the greatest expert. And I think a lot of times in the sign business, in any business, people become reluctant to sell when they don't feel like, well, I'm not expert enough. And it's like, I mean, you could read an article about a product and be more expert than your client. So I think it's just a matter of I'm pretty brave, I'm pretty dumb, I'm pretty like I'll just say yes, I can do 90 buses in 90 days and not go fact check that. I was just like, yes, I will do it.
Who helped you quote 90 buses? I mean, that's a pretty significant job. That's your foot in the door, and it's a large job. I mean, now probably looking back, you're probably capable of doing that, but at that time, how did you go about doing it?
Well, because they were in such a rush, that worked to my advantage. And so what I agreed to was a percentage of markup. So I just said, I don't know what it's going to cost because some buses are in New York City and some buses are in Timbuktu. So I can't possibly give you a quote, but I will tell you that I will mark it up, at whatever percent over cost. And I will do all the project management. I will handle all the project management from one end to the other. And so that was enough for them to be like, great, my problem is solved. I can go to my boss and say the problem is solved. And that's the thing about sales. You have to understand why they're buying. If I thought that the number mattered, I never would have sold that job. But I knew that he just needed, I mean, he was just like beads of sweat. Like, can you do this job? And I was like, yes, I could dab the sweat. I can do that job.
So that's a very interesting approach. You basically agreed to a markup percentage, and I guess maybe a project management fee
Yeah,
along those
essentially,
lines.
it was probably something like a 50% markup over the cost. And then on top of that, I said any body repairs, any mechanical repairs that the body shop can do, like there'll be a light out or the wheelchair lift not working, that's all on top of that. And I have no idea what I'm going to mark that up. I'm just going to repair it and you're just going to pay that. And they were like, okay.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure.
Like,
It's a
I
job
can't
of a
think.
lifetime, honestly. It's a job of a lifetime.
I
Who was
can't
the
think I've
yeah, it
client?
sounds
ever
like
heard of somebody pricing something like that. That's really interesting.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm
who
not
was
going to
the
talk
client?
about the client. I'm not going to talk about the
You
client.
know.
They're still a
Okay, well,
client. They're still a
yeah,
client.
that's good.
oh, they're still a client. Oh, have you done
That's
another
good.
90 buses for them?
We have done millions of dollars of work for them over the last 20 years.
Wow, look at
Millions
that.
of dollars. Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Simply because you can just get it taken care of and make it happen for them.
Yeah. We've had to adapt. Obviously, over 20 years, we're not dealing with the same people. It's a different company. It's much bigger. We've had to constantly like, oh, you don't want that anymore? What if we provided it like this?
Mm.
And they went from,
Mhm.
we want white glove to we need it cheap or we need it fast. Like we've had to keep adapting to what they need. And sometimes we've told them no when they want things that I don't want to do. So we've had to learn to just trust that they'll stick around but only do really what we want to be doing in terms of spending our time and energy.
Okay. So, did you do a lot of other like managed projects like this for clients all over the place, or?
Yeah. So our business model ended up, because I got really good, obviously, at that, I ended up building a lot of clients like that. So they referred me to other people. I got confident enough. I would pitch to these corporate clients, and we ended up building a big business around you got 12 locations, you got 200 locations, we'll do it all. So for the last, I don't know, 17 years, that's really been our bread and butter. Like I've hired these very experienced, very talented project managers. I'm very hands-on. I was very much in the personal relationship with these customers. And then pandemic hit, and all these customers, most of these customers I'm talking about were in healthcare. And they were like, stay away. Don't get anywhere near our facility. Do nothing. Do absolutely nothing. Don't
Mm,
call us. And so we ended up having to lay off staff, and we scrapped. Literally, they probably canceled $1 million worth of work. It was just like overnight. They were like, all that work
uh,
is completely canceled. So we ended up really having a kind of a come to Jesus meeting with ourselves of like, okay, these clients are gone. So we don't know how long they're going to be gone. Is it a year? Is it forever? So we need to start building other kinds of business. So we started focusing on local, and realized this is way easier than talking to an installer at 9 p.m. out in California and having to, ream them out. This is way easier, just printing stuff and hanging it. So we really kind of decided that this last kind of stage of our business, as we get older, our kids are out of the house, and, we have an established company, that probably doing a different business model might be more fun and easy, and that we don't necessarily need to feel like we have to keep feeding this monster of business. So we just completely pivoted, and we told our staff, this is what we're going to focus on, and we're going to grow this. And we ended up doing an acquisition last year of another local sign company that does a lot of it was an independent who did a lot of only local business, really. And we, brought most of their staff in, and learned from them and learned from their customers and kind of kept adapting. And now we're actually doing more business than we were doing before that change. And of course, it's more profitable, and I'm not totally freaked out every hour of the day, and I'm not getting calls at 9 o'clock at night. So it's been a very deliberate change, and it really was amazing to me to see how fast we were able to kind of adapt. And I would just encourage any sign company out there, if you're in a business model that you're exhausted from, or you're not making money, or you're tired of it, or whatever, you can change. You can literally change your business model.
I love that. Like, everything about you is like so different than the norm, Maggie. Like you jumped into the sign industry, both feet, no experience. You said, "All right, this is what I want." And then you signed with the Signarama franchise, which I would say, yeah, like the franchises are not known for doing large national projects and like that type of relationship building with larger accounts. And then now, like 20 years later or 17 years later, you're like maybe there's something to like the local stuff,
Yeah.
the kind of franchise bread and butter stuff.
Yeah, it's funny. It's very funny. I was always known as like the National Project Management Signarama and a lot of, but yeah, it's a headache and a half, especially after, the pandemic and labor rates and, literally I would, especially places like California or something, you would call and say, "Can you go drive by?" And they're literally like, "I can drive by in 14 days and it'll be $375 for me to do that." Like drive by. And I was like,
Wow,
never mind. Never mind.
that's outrageous, outrageous. Pete, you look blown away, man.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm interested to hear more about this transformation in terms of timing, in terms of like mindset. I talk to sign shop owners very often about where they currently are in what we identify as like the stages of growth, right? So everybody tries to get to a certain level where the business can not run with, well, I should say the business can run without them, right? I mean, like that's every business owner, that's every sign shop owner's dream. I mean, you made a pretty big wave for yourself. I'm just kind of curious as to first the time frame in terms of that transition. How
Yeah.
long did it take you to do until you were completely comfortable with it?
I mean, it's been a 3-year process. So 2020 is when, the pandemic hit. And then last year was 22 was when we decided to do the acquisition. And it was really just designed to fuel. Like we had already kind of pivoted. And then we decided, okay, this would actually help kind of throw fuel on the fire of what we were doing. The other thing we did that was really important was years ago, long before the pandemic, I realized that because we were so consumed with doing $10,000 projects and $20,000 projects, we were like, customers would call about a $200 banner, and we were like, "What? No, I don't have time for that." And I realized how bad that was. Like, because every large client we have typically starts with like some small order, right? Like they call, they need window lettering, and the next thing you know, they are doing other work with you. And so a few years ago, I decided that in order to get my staff to refocus on this idea of doing that quick turn stuff, I created a brand within my Signarama called Sign Rabbit. And I was like, okay, people, this is what we're going to do. We're going to start marketing Sign Rabbit. Certain employees, certain salespeople are just going to be focused on Sign Rabbit. So you don't ever do a $5,000 order or a $20,000 order. All you do is $200 banners all day and name tags and, all of that stuff, yard signs. And it took a long time to kind of get them really into it. It took a lot of like, no, really, let's put graphics on our cars. No, really, we're going to do this. Like, build a website. I had to
Yeah.
really be committed myself. I couldn't just say, "This is what we're going to do." I had to build it so that it was kind of irresistible, where they were like, "No, really, this is what we're doing. We're Sign Rabbit now." And so now I have three people really focused on Sign Rabbit, and they call themselves the Rabbits, the Sign Rabbits, and they are all about, can you need it in an hour, or do you need it tomorrow, or do you need it by the weekend? And it went from like, people would say, "I need a yard sign for Friday," and my staff would be like, "Oh my God, how are we going to get that done? We got these huge projects stacked up. We can't possibly put a small order like that in front of all these clients, these important clients." And now the Sign Rabbits are the priority, and everyone in the company knows, like, no, it's Sign Rabbit. I don't care. I don't care about, XYZ company. You're gonna get that banner done, and we're gonna get it done in an hour, and we're not going to charge them an arm and a leg, and it's going to be the quality that we want to make. It's not going to be some of our competitors who focus on this make some really crappy product, and we don't. We use the exact same product, exact same designers, everything's the same. We just do it really fast, and it's transformed the whole energy of the company.
Is that more for, did you do this for internal purposes or because your market thinks like Signarama takes too long?
It was it's both. The primary thing was getting my staff's head wrapped around it because they're the one answering the phone and saying, "Oh, can we do that? I don't think we can do that." Right? So I had to fix their
Yeah.
head first. And then once I could fix that, then now they talk about it with customers. And one of my guys goes to BNI Group, and they literally will call him the Sign Rabbit. They're like, "Hey, Sign Rabbit, I need something next week." Like
Mm.
it's literally like it's kind of baking in now with the customers.
How did the people, the executive team over at Signarama, what did they think of this idea?
I've never asked, and they've never told me.
Sorry.
No, they've seen it. They've seen it. I mean, this is one of the things about Signarama that I think I really love. I mean, the founder of Signarama, Ray Titus, is a entrepreneur at heart, and he wants his entrepreneurs to be successful. He is
Right.
not a control freak. Now, he and I have had a lot of arguments because I tend to be on the control freak side of things. So, for example, when I first became an owner and I, was successful, he invited me to be a part of the advisory council.
Mhm.
And we were talking about owners not following the brand, like owners using the wrong color red in their showroom or whatever, right? Like, what are we going to do about these owners? And I remember we got into a debate and I was like, let me tell you something, Ray. I said, when I worked in the automotive business, if they wanted to send you something for your showroom, guess what? It showed up and they reached into your bank account and took the money. So I don't know why you're having such a hard time making these owners get in line. And he
Really?
was like, that's not how I roll. He was like, that's not how I roll. He's like, yes, if they're damaging the brand, I'm going to do something about it. But, me doing Sign Rabbit doesn't hurt the brand. It doesn't make people confused. Like, what is that? If I'm doing good business and I'm taking care of my customers and I'm paying my royalties and I'm being a good citizen in my community, I can create a little side brand and develop it. It doesn't, I still primarily am Signarama. I mean, you look at my building and it's obviously Signarama. So
So I
he's
take it you have a
very,
sign on. I take it you have a sign on your building now.
I bought my own building. So now nobody can tell me I
Nice.
can't have a sign. Nobody can tell me that. Nobody puts baby in the corner.
I love it. I love it. It's to me, it's so striking that it's like you've made a business out of like the business that people want to get out of. Like a lot of the owners within our Facebook group are like, "Hey, I want to do these $10,000 projects. I want to do these $20,000 projects." And not necessarily knowing what that entails and like the stress and the headache that comes along with it.
Well, what we've learned, like, here's what I would say. I still do $10,000 projects and $20,000 projects and $200,000. I still do all these big projects, but I'm very picky about what I do because I know I have the expertise. I know we can do it. I know my people can do it. So why would I take on a project that I knew was going to make everyone miserable and questionably whether or not I'm going to make enough money on it. So what we've really done is said, yeah, we'll take on projects, but only the big projects we really want, the ones that really are
Mm.
creatively exciting. We love the customer. We know the customer is awesome. It's or it's easy to do. Like it's one of those things where you're like, oh, well, we can do that. We do that every day. So we kind of put it through a filter of like, do we want to do it? Is it something that everybody is in agreement? Yes, we want to do it. And we have debates. There's definitely, I'll get an estimate request and I'm like, ooh, guys, this sounds cool. And they're like, Maggie, that's just fabricated metal. That's just going to be 6 months of hell. And I'm like, all right, all
We'll
right.
pass.
Do you have a hard time telling your customers no?
It's
Like,
the worst. It's the worst thing ever. Yes, I have a terrible time selling customers no.
okay, so what's your go-to approach? I'm your customer and you have to tell me no. Do you just rip the Band-Aid off or do you kind of like,
I say, Pete,
well,
I love you, man. I would love to do this job for you, but I really don't think I have the bandwidth right now. We are covered up and we're probably covered up for several months. So, and I just not going to take on a project where I'm going to drop the ball or you're going to have to be calling me once a week. I can refer you to a couple great people I know, but and it breaks my heart, Pete, because I want to make sure you come back to me next time. I really hope you'll call me next time.
She's good.
She's real good. She's real good. She's real good. I felt like, oh, it's okay. I felt like saying, oh, it's okay. Don't worry about it. I'm all right. I'll be fine. Don't cry. Oh, that's you know what? That's seasoned. That's polished. Very nice. I hope our listeners can. I hope our listeners will take exceptional note to the way you did that. That is polished.
Thank you.
Very
And
well done.
every now and then a customer will be like, "What? You're busy?" I'm like, "Yes." And he's like, "I'll wait. I'll wait."
I'll wait. Love that.
I noticed that you did say I'm covered for the next several months. So I would never have said I'll wait. If it's months, I mean, you're pretty much setting the seed there. Like, call somebody else, dude. I'm not doing it.
Yes, and I get to direct them to people I wanna take care of. You know, I can refer them to the people that I know and trust.
All right. So the $1 million question: have you ever referred anybody to a FastSigns?
Of course I have.
Very nice.
The
Very,
customers
very nice.
the customers I don't like, I send
Oh man! Oh, that's knife to the heart. That's it. Those are
Maggie and I
fighting
are
words.
spirit animals.
Well, the truth is this:
Yeah.
the guy that I just bought out his sign company last year, he and I were friendly competitors, and I would always always send the customers I didn't want to him, and he knew it. He figured it out, and he and I would laugh about it. He was like, "I know when you send me a customer, they are not going to be fun." I'm like, "Good job, good luck."
Hey, it's a free lead.
Right? Free business.
Oh. That was Mike's strategy for the longest time too, I think, right, Mike?
It was, yeah. No, that's what I always used to do when I had my shop. If it was somebody I didn't want to deal with, I always referred them to the FastSigns down the street.
Now, we did do business with several FastSigns around the country because, of course, we're doing these remote jobs. And honestly, I mean, I've never had a bad experience with those FastSigns. They, you know, if they don't answer the phone or they're difficult, I never do business with them. But anyone I did end up doing business with, you know, they do a good job. I was not unhappy about it. So I'm friends with many FastSigns owners.
And I will once again throw out my disclaimer that I have nothing against FastSigns. I have several FastSigns clients now. I just the local FastSigns franchise in my area was, you know, they did like race car decals and that was about it. So
Well, the FastSigns in our area is very well respected, and we've known each other. In fact, I used to do business with him when I was in the car business. I would call him for signs, which is funny. But they do a great job in our town. They're a worthy competitor.
yeah, I've seen
Nice.
some that produce some pretty spectacular work. So
Yeah.
What type? What's the 90 buses is an extravagant job. I get it, but what's like your favorite type of sign to make?
Well, lately we've been doing a lot with the distilleries, the bourbon distilleries in our region, and that's just been a ton of fun because it's kind of an arms race at this point with them. Like they're all just trying to create the coolest visitor experience and the, you know, greatest looking sign, and of course they're all making money hand over fist. So they're creative,
Yes.
they're fun. They, you know, you love doing it because you get to work inside these distilleries, and so that's probably our favorite kind of industry to work in is the bourbon industry.
Are you able to fabricate your own signs, or are you outsourcing still?
We fabricate about probably 75% of what we do we do in-house. So we're trying to reduce that. Like we're trying to squeeze that down. We had a leadership team meeting today talking about, well, squeezing that down. Does that mean we are adding capabilities, or does it mean we're turning away work? Like we're, you know, I'm trying to really get my leadership team is really running the company. So I'm really trying to just encourage them to think through the options on that. So we want to I'd love to get to 80% on a consistent basis.
Nice. What advice would you have for other shop owners, Maggie? Like, obviously, you've been. How many columns have you done for Signs of the Times at this point? About too many to count?
Maybe 20, something like that. Yeah. And it's funny. I love writing them, and I'm always like just sending them before they're needed because I'm just like, oh, I have another idea, and I'm like sending them out, and he's like, whoa, all right, thanks.
Yeah, so you've got like an open soapbox here to like jump on and talk to the audience. Like,
I think be a learner. I think that if you're not learning, you're dying. If you're ripe, you're rotten. And so if you think you figured it all out, it's probably time to get out of the business or turn it over to your team to run your company. And learning everything from being willing to try something different, being willing to hire someone you've never hired, being willing to take on a project you've never taken on. To me, the business thrives under just constant innovation. I think that's the sign companies that do really well. When you walk into a sign company that's not innovating, we've all seen it, like dusty showroom, stuff stacked up in the production room. You're like, why do you have 400 pieces of, dye bond that are cut into weird shapes? What is this for? So some
we're
master
saving
puzzle
that for later.
Yeah,
We're gonna use that.
I might need it.
We're gonna use it. We're gonna use it. It's been sitting there for 2 years, but we're
Oh
gonna
my
use it
God. Yeah,
eventually.
so I think innovating is the most important technique. And it doesn't necessarily mean you constantly are reinventing. It just means be willing to learn and grow and try something different, because otherwise you really are going to just end up in the rearview mirror in this industry.
So we usually ask this question to a lot of our guests. So I'm gonna ask the same question to you, but we'll maybe change it up a little bit. What are you currently seeing are the trends today in this business, and where do you see the future of the sign and graphics, the visual communication industry?
Well, I probably don't have a really astute answer here. I would say that I think 3D printing is going to become a competitor in this space. Like, it's a long way away from being able to produce high-end ADA signs with a, that's not there yet. But I would be familiar with learning what's going on in that industry. I think that the adhesive vinyls are just getting wilder and wilder. Pretty soon you'll be able to like install something on a cloud. I mean, they're just like, it's just like they're constantly like, do you want to wrap your dog? We now have a vinyl for wrapping your dog. So I think learning like what is going on out there that, and don't assume that because you had a terrible experience with a wall wrap, well, that's just stupid. You're going to have a terrible experience with a wall wrap if you're in the wall wrap business. So you just have to kind of take your licks. So I think those things are really innovative. And I think we're going to see a lot with digital signage. We really are not into that right now, to be honest. We're not really, it's not there. But I do feel like eventually you'll be like pouring your cereal out and a little digital sign's going to fall out. And you'll be like, oh, wow, I got a digital sign. Like, it's just going to get so cheap and, everywhere and ubiquitous. So I do think digital is going to be, it's going to be pretty amazing. It's just I still think it's in its infancy. It's just baby steps.
Why are you not in it? What about that part is deterring you from moving forward down that path?
I was very preoccupied with the national project management stuff, and of course it doesn't really lend itself to in-house production. I'm not going to be building any digital signage anytime soon, so it doesn't really mesh with sort of our values as a company. Although one of my leadership team today, he was like, I'd really love to get into digital signs. And I was like,
don't tell him to listen to this. Don't tell him to listen to this.
I told him to go for it. I mean, if one of my team wants to they want to push the edge and go into something, of course, let's next opportunity if you want to take lead and work on it with us. But I'm not going to do it. I'm done with. I don't want to. Digital signage doesn't excite me, and I will tell you the truth that I want to work on things that are fun and exciting, and I want that for my team. So if digital signage is fun and exciting to him, I want him to, let's explore it. But I don't want to do it. I don't want to get involved in it.
Fair enough. That makes sense.
What else? So what else you got?
Yeah. So what would you say is the future for your business? Like, what's the future for Signarama Downtown? Like, we've heard your take on the industry, but what's the future for Maggie?
Well, it's interesting. I've been cutting out more and more work hours, so I've been able to work less, and my leadership team is filling the gap. And my husband has a different business I won't get into, but he has a different business that's kind of taking more and more of his time. So he's still physically at our business, but he's less actually involved in the day-to-day. So my hope, honestly, is over the next 5 to 10 years that my team just continues to kind of take up the slack, and I can just be a coach and a mentor and teach them the business, and just continue to operate. We have an amazing facility. We have a great neighborhood we're in. We have an incredible leadership team, young leadership team. We all are really loving it. It's sort of like I'm holding my breath, like we're having a great time, aren't we? They're like, yeah, we're having a great time. I'm like, oh God. So I don't know. I don't know the future, but
This is gonna crash.
yeah, exactly. Like, okay, well, that means all hell's about to break loose. But it's right now, I could, at this level of involvement and stress for me, I could do this for quite a while.
You've mentioned a couple of times your leadership team. That's not something that we've heard too many times with some of our other guests on this show. So would you mind giving us a little insight to what that's like, how often you meet with them, how many members to this team are there, and maybe what their responsibilities are?
Yeah, we have 4 on our leadership team. So we have a operations manager, so he runs production and install. We have a design team manager, and we have a sales manager, and then we have a trainer. We have a guy who's like been with me for almost 10 years, and like literally his 100% full-time job is training, safety, making sure that we're, people
Really?
are, yeah. I know, it shocks me. It honestly shocks me because it
Yeah.
wasn't really like something that I was like, this is what we need. But when we went through the pandemic and lost all these employees, and then we rehired, and of course, it was everybody quitting. Like it was just this insane carousel of employees that I was like, I got to do something. So we implemented, I will tell you this, we implemented, you guys, I'm sure you've heard about EOS and the traction system, the Gino Wickman program. And we adopted that in 2020. Transformative.
Wow.
Totally
That's great to hear.
transformative. Oh my
That's
God.
fantastic.
It literally changed my whole life. I was just like, I'll never not do this. So we've been using that system, and now I'm able to run this meeting. So we hired an implementer, and now I'm able to kind of run it and make it go. And that's made a huge difference. So the trainer came in on because we had the 3 on the leadership team, and it was working well. But Thomas is his name. I was like, this guy is just he's we call him peanut butter because we spread him around. Like he knows everything. So like literally he could work any job in the place, like spread him like peanut butter. Any gap, we're just gonna like fill it with a little peanut butter if someone's out sick or whatever. So he'd been doing
Love
that
it.
for a while. And then I was like, it needs to be more deliberate. Like he is peanut butter. He's everywhere. You can call on him for everything, but I need him to be more strategically applying himself where he sees, oh, we have a gap here. So that's when I said, you know what, Thomas, why don't you join the leadership team meeting on a short-term basis just to talk about training, because I know that's your passion. And he loves it. He's just like, I get to train? I was like, yes. He was like, okay, yes, please. It was like this match made in heaven. And now I can't figure out how to do it without him. I mean, he's incredible.
That's such an amazing thing. I wish we started with that because there's a lot of questions that I have with this, but not too many shops out there of your size, even of your size, would bring on a full-time trainer. This is remarkable to me.
It's crazy.
One might argue that they aren't related to income, but I would argue the opposite, that they're training employees to be more efficient. And this gentleman, Tom, now let me ask you, does he have all of your departments under his wing, or like design, operations, installation?
He doesn't do a lot of hands-on training in sales because he doesn't really have a ton of sales background, but he has sales experience. But he's more hands-on training for install and production. But what he does do for every single department is like get the documents written, share the documents, do the training, come to the luncheon, present the safety. He's literally building something that will just sustain. And he's older, so he's going to be able to like move to 4 days a week when he's ready, and move to 3 days a week, and we'll just constantly support that training process that he's in, the documentation that he's doing. I can't believe it either, honestly. If someone told me this a year ago, I'd be like, that's insane. I would never do that. So I don't know how it happened.
You can't fight what works, right?
Does having somebody like Thomas on your staff allow you to take gambles or risks with recruiting, bringing on somebody that's green in many areas that may not necessarily have the experience?
Well, we
Does that
almost
allow you to feel comfortable?
yes, and we almost never hire experienced sign people. So we always pretty much start with a green P. And so yes,
Sorry, Mike.
it allows me to, yeah, make sure that things go the way that he expects them to. And to be honest with you, I know how to do very little in my company. I couldn't run a plotter to save my life. I couldn't rip a file. I don't even know what that means. So I can't teach anyone anything. I can't. No, I can't. No. So it's been amazing to have someone who has, and he has 10 years of like knowledge, like, and he's the kind of guy, you have these kinds of guys. You're like, oh, this company came back and we did this tomato. What red was that? He's like, oh, that was definitely cardinal red. That was definitely cardinal red. Like he just has this crazy mind.
That's really cool.
That's,
One of the more amazing things I think I've heard anybody say they do in their shop. It's the first time I've ever heard of any shop of any size having somebody like that. I mean, I'm sure like Yesco has a, full program like that, but any independent shop, it's unheard of. It's really cool. I'd love to see what the metrics are in that. Like what, like Peter said, like what percentage of increase in efficiency you see, or
Well, the one thing we
reducing
measure
waste.
is mistakes. And so that is really his metric, is how many mistakes are we making?
Has it
oh,
gone
that's
down
very
significantly?
interesting.
Yeah, it's
So
painful.
that goes on his scorecard, huh? How many
Mm-hmm.
mistakes people are making.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So that's your leadership team. Those, and I gather that you're in those meetings. How often do you meet?
Weekly, we meet as a team, and then I do meetings one-on-one with them, generally weekly or bi-weekly, depending on how much coaching they want.
And I assume that's when you're practicing the EO system.
Yeah, the EOS meetings are the leadership team meetings are the EOS meetings. So they have a very specific agenda and cadence, and you just you follow that process, and it makes sense. At first, you're like, "What are we doing? What is this? Rocks? What's a rock?" But once you get the hang of it, it's like you can't. Now the managers are going, I'm going to start doing this EOS with my team, with my design team, and with my sales team. Like they're starting to adopt it and use it with their teams. So it gets more granular with the whole company.
Awesome.
That's great. That's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that story with us, and also sharing how a little bit of insight into your leadership teams there. I love that you said EOS. The book's sitting right behind me there. It's right there in the corner. There it is.
Good job.
Hey, how you doing?
Good job. Is it dusty, Pete? Is it dusty, or is you?
Hey now, hey, no. It's actually the same system that I consult on. So I would have, when I'm speaking with sign shop owners across the country, a lot of the principles are coming right from that book as well.
Yeah. Well, good. It's cool. I think I would say this: if you are interested in the system, read the book. It will maybe not make sense, but call Pete to implement for you, because it literally completely transformed my leadership experience. So it's been wonderful.
That feels like a solid place to stop, and unless we go like another hour on the master class of the leadership team, which I feel like, hey, that's probably going to be the big question for the audience after this episode, is like, how do I get a leadership team as well?
20 years of banging your head against the wall. That's how you do it.
It just takes that long. That's it.
Yeah.
Maggie, amazing conversation.
Thank you.
Super glad to have you on. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been fun.
Guys.
You guys are great, and I love the different perspectives you all bring to the conversation. It's really enriching. I hope your audience keeps growing.
Thank you.
Perfect. Guys, any parting shots?
I could take a couple of jabs.
Come on.
Yeah.
But Mama told me never to hit a woman, so I'm not gonna. Let's just say, if you and I were neighbors, well, thank God we're not neighbors. I'll be sending my dog next door, ripping up your grass. I'd be taking your garbage pails in when you think that the garbage man is going to take them, drag them back in.
Oh, that's
No,
funny.
but from as a franchise owner or a former franchise owner, it's great to hear that the franchise was a success for you. Franchising is healthy across the board in this space. I wish many people would look at the sign industry. There's a lot of I love the just going back to one of the first things that you said in terms of nights and weekends, having that time for friends and family, not being busy around Christmas. Going back to those points, that's why you jumped into this business.
Yeah.
You didn't have a design background or construction background. Where you came from. It's very, people come from different walks of life, and I'm glad that you found the franchise for you. It wouldn't have been my choice, but I'm glad that you found the
Listen to
franchise for you, and I'm happy because that means franchising works. So for those that are out there that are interested in jumping into the sign business, whether it be Team Blue or Team Red, or there's some other teams out there, but they're not.
Come on, let's be serious. It's Team Blue or Team Red. Come on.
I agree. I mean, there's two players if you're really looking at it. But if you're thinking, what would you say to that somebody that's like on the bubble? I know you said that franchising was for you, but
Yeah.
somebody's on the
If
teetering
if
on the
you're
edge of converting.
if you're not a team player, like if you're not somebody who's like, I'll take a hit for the team, all right, or I'll take a call from a guy at 5 o'clock who, is brand new and is asking, baby questions about how to start their business or whatever. Like if you're not into that, I don't really think franchising is for you. I just love a team, like whether it's my team or my customers or the franchise. Like I just love being a part of something bigger than just me and being able to play a part and, knowing what I'm good at. And so I think that franchising is for those people. And I think people who aren't team players do well in franchising. I'm not saying they can't do well. I'm just saying I don't think they necessarily get all the juice out of it. I get all the juice out of my franchise, like all of it. I make sure that I do good for the franchise and I make sure that they help me when I need help with something. So I think that it can work well, but it isn't for someone who's like, leave me alone. I just want to do my own thing. That's not franchising. That you don't want to be in a franchise.
Well said. Well said.
Well said.
Maggie,
Indeed.
thank you so much for jumping on here. It was great to talk to you.
Thanks for asking me. It's great fun.
I enjoyed this conversation thoroughly. I'm sure the guys did too, but nice to meet you. I know we haven't formally met, but it's great to get to know you, and I look forward to having you on here in a couple of months and maybe touch a base.
Yeah, I would love to, anytime. I'd love to hear back from you guys and I'll be listening in.
Great.
Excellent. Thanks, Maggie.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Maggie.
Talk to you.
All right. We'll see you. All right. Wow. What a conversation. Yeah. Really enjoyed having Maggie on.
That was great. She was
really
she
cool.
was spectacular. I love that whole thing about her leadership group. I think that was fantastic.
Yeah, I definitely feel like that's a topic for the next episode or a future episode. The leadership group. I feel like I want a leadership team now as well. I guess this is our leadership team, but anyway, let's jump into rapid fire takeaways. Mike, we haven't had you in a while. Why don't you go first, man?
Yeah, I love the way she fired Peter as a client. No, I
So
really,
did I.
it was really. I think that's something that every sign shop owner struggles with, is telling your customer no. I mean, it's a really difficult thing to do, and there's a real fear that you're going to lose that customer forever, and you're going to offend them, and they're going to go tell everybody that your sign shop is terrible. Like, she made me want to continue to buy signs from her, and I'm not even a customer of hers, just by the way she let Peter down.
Right.
I mean, it was really, really excellent. I mean, I think that the whole thing was a little bit tongue in cheek, but at the same time, I think there's a really good lesson there for everybody to take, and that's the proper way to tell a customer no. When A, it's okay to tell a customer no, and B, that's the way to do it for sure.
Yeah, she was really good at that. I mean, I was happy to be fired by her.
Yeah, she's done that before.
You could tell she's done that before, because I had nowhere to go with that conversation. I couldn't rebut. I couldn't beg. She would have just been like, "No, honey, sorry."
Yeah,
Hang
she
up
left
the
you
phone.
0 outs. Yeah, there was
Yeah.
nothing you could come back with and say, but what if we? I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
it was brilliant. I I don't think I've ever seen a better display of salesmanship than that.
There you
Yeah,
have
you
it.
mentioned tongue in
Pete,
cheek, but it is a really good way of letting a customer down. I enjoyed that part. That was a little 2 minute little section of our podcast here, but it was actually very informative on how you can do that.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, y- but to be honest, I'm going to come back to that last part. I mean, that trainer. I mean, I think that's news to me. I have never seen that. I don't think I've ever spoken to a sign shop owner that has a full-time trainer on their
Mhm.
staff.
no
I
way.
think that the part that I've learned the most about that is that how there's room for that in this industry. I can, I'm thinking about all of my conversations with my current clients and sign shop owners I've met in the past. I'm thinking to myself, man, if you can just afford this, how awesome would that be? It's not for everybody, but it's educational, it's eye-opening. I think that's the biggest point is that, this business offers so much. This industry offers so much to an owner, to an employee, to a manager. Now, like I just heard of something I've never heard of before. Bringing on a full-time trainer. Wow, that's amazing. That's somebody that's dedicated to systems, to developing your people, to even kind of pushing forward your culture. Because now she said, I don't bring in any experienced employees. That's, I mean, I have heard that before, but it's also very hard to turn good talent away. But now they're bringing on people that are completely green in the business and teaching them a skill. And I know we all love that. I know we all love that. Like teaching
Yeah, yeah,
the next
100%.
generation on how to make signs, how to be an installer, how to do service, how to be a designer. I mean, that's what this is all about. That's why we're doing this. So hearing that she's also echoing in that in her own operation, I loved it. That's my biggest takeaway.
Yeah.
I want to tell the world, get a trainer, get a trainer.
Get a trainer. Yeah. So the biggest takeaway for me is just the first year that she did $1 million in sales, right? And the reason that she did that was getting outside the shop. I think for all of our listeners that are still struggling to crack $1 million in sales, Maggie did it in her first year as the only sales rep. To me, that signals that you can't be afraid to get outside of your shop. If you are not making the sales that you want to make, nobody is going to sell your business better than you, the owner of the business. So if you aren't hitting your goals, like if you're still struggling to hit $1 million or $750,000 or $500,000, what can you do to drive that business yourself before handing off the reins to your leadership team down the line? That's the biggest takeaway for me.
Yeah, and probably the most important one that we didn't even harp on that on the call, but she got out there. She mentioned handing out flyers, getting in her car, making a left turn, making a right turn. I mean, she didn't have a sign
It's
shop. She didn't even have a sign shop with a sign on it. Let's be honest. Like she was dealt a very poor hand to start and did $1 million+ her first year. That
amazing.
uh,
Almost unheard of. With no experience in the industry. It's just unheard of.
with with no experience in the industry. Yeah. Yeah. Now, did she land a humongous job? Sure. Even her pricing method was a little unorthodox. We could probably take that away from her little story there, like just agreeing to a margin over the costs. I mean, like I would never have done that, but that
I've
worked.
I've been in, my fair share of bid situations where there are so many unknowns, like you don't even know how to price this. Do you just put a number on it and hope that, your costs come in somewhere where you want them to and your margin's right? I mean, that's a tough situation to be in as an estimator. And yeah, I agree. I never would have thought in a million years to just, be that transparent, with what your markup is and what you're making on the job. Just, it's
Yeah,
really totally blew my mind with that too. I mean, she's definitely approaching this industry with a, different tool set than the rest of us are. It's
Yeah, maybe
fascinating.
maybe even a little bit of a different just method of thinking.
Yeah.
She mentioned one of the smaller takeaways from that was that she said, I just solved their need.
Mhm.
that you can clearly see, we sell on solutions often in this business. Like, what do you want? But she sold off of a need. And that might be that problem. I'm going to change my answer. That is the biggest takeaway. She was selling on a need, not on a want. And I think that's interesting because we often, no matter how many, how many times we discuss it, whether it's a beautiful design that you put together, Mike, but it's what the customer wants is what they're going to pay for, is what they're going to get. It may not be what they need. And I'm gonna dwell on that thought and maybe use it for our next episode.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's bring it home. If you are interested in being a guest on the podcast, definitely hit us up at hey@bettersignshop.com. If you are a sign shop owner and you are looking for an awesome group of other sign shop owners to connect with, appreciate the drum beats, Pete. Check out our Facebook group, the Better Sign Shop Community.
If you liked this episode, make sure you hit subscribe to get all the latest episodes and check out our website, bettersignshop.com. Get free resources and helpful tools on growing your shop. Thanks for listening.